everyone, and welcome to the Downright Upright Show, the place to go to hear out loud and proud what Minnesotans are thinking. And I am your host, Philip Anthony. Thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you're all doing fantabulous, because fantabulous means fantastic and fabulous, put together twice as nice. And today, I have a very special guest. This is the woman responsible for this show, in my view. I mean, she doesn't believe that, but I really have to say that she motivated me and was my inspiration to do this show. I'm going to reintroduce you, and you were on my show originally, like at the very beginning sometime. But now you're on again because I want to thank you, because I've made it in this business because of you, and I want to thank you for that. My special guest on today's show is Sue Ann Rawlins, an English as a second language teacher, retired, a podcaster whose podcasts include A Toast to Work and Twitter Travels for Pete. And, of course, she's the author of the book, Traveling the Trail for Pete, Finding Belonging in a Political Campaign. So welcome to the Downright Upright Show, Sue Ann.
Thank you, Philip. It's so fun to be back in the studio with you.
I know. Isn't it crazy?
It's fun. And you know what? I will take credit for being a catalyst. You know, I'm the one who kind of sparked it all.
We have to talk about that, though.
I know. But when you say that everything is responsible for everything...
Yeah.
Maybe the spark. I'll take credit for that.
Okay. Well, thank you. So let's talk about that day I met you, because my listeners would probably want to know what happened that day and what motivated me to become a podcaster like you were. You had two podcasts.
Yeah.
But the one I met you was at a Pete Buttigieg function.
Yeah, so all that mention of Pete is Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah, who is now the Secretary of Transportation for the United States of America, who's doing an amazing job. And it's funny, they seem to use him for all of the, public relations stuff, because he's so well eloquent and so well.
He's a gifted communicator.
That goes without saying. Yeah, that's amazing.
Who are you going to call? Call Pete.
Who are you going to call? I don't want to sing too much, because then you have to have a copyright. Anyway, so let's talk about that day. We had a Pete Buttigieg.
Well, it was a big event for Get Out the Vote. It was early voting had started in Minnesota, so we were promoting that. We wanted to make sure people knew they could do early voting, and then there was also door knocking and training sessions. So I was doing the Twitter Travels for Pete, and I had done a lot of interviews with people in a studio-like setting, as in, my house or somebody's house. But I was like the roving reporter that day with my handheld recorder and a mic, and I was trying to get interviews with people who were hanging around. Like, I wanted to get the feel for what I was trying to convey was all the energy that Pete had on the ground, boots on the ground. And I wanted to capture that from a lot of different voices. So you were sitting with another person you were going to do door knocking with. And a lot of people just met up with whoever there. Like, it's not like, some people came with friends or family to door knock with, but other people just found a partner there. So I don't think you knew your partner.
No, I came alone.
Yeah. So you were with your door knocking partner, kind of planning what you're going to do.
Really nice guy. I wish I could keep in touch.
Yeah.
Have kept in touch with him.
So you're sitting in this office building by the fountain, because the fountain, it can be heard in the background. I don't know. You might want to listen to that again and hear the little fountain.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So
I always wanted to ask you this. I don't think I asked you on the first. Why did you pick me? What did you think I was just very talkative?
Well, I picked both of you.
Oh, both of us, yes. Actually, yes. Can't forget the other guy.
Well, actually, I wanted to pick people that I hadn't already talked to.
Yeah.
And so that was a plus, because I didn't know you.
Mm-hmm. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
I just met you, I think, at that moment.
Right. So, of course, you didn't know what I was asking you, and you were very, very nice to be game for the whole thing.
Thank you.
Because some people clam up when they I go, it's not on video.
Yeah, I got nervous.
Unlike today.
I did get nervous a little bit. because I never was on a podcast before. It was my first time doing that, and I didn't know what you were going to ask me, so I was like apprehensive, kind of. But you were so welcoming. I remember you were just, hi.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm doing
And I always wanted to make sure people had control over their product, shall we say. And I'm pretty sure that I sent you what I was going to use for your approval first.
Yes.
Because that was what I did back then. And so I didn't want people to feel like they had no control over what actually went out, in the finished product.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But it was a wonderful way to get the opinions of the Pete Buttigieg supporters. Because people didn't know much about him at the time. He was new. Right?
And I was getting such great material, I guess the word material, but info from people. Like I could try to predict what people were going to say about why they were, so moved by Pete's candidacy. But then, you all said something new and different for me. And that's why I wanted to interview someone who was not already a leader, right? So an everyday, boots on the ground supporter, because that's where all the, I don't know, power, but that's what's so important in a campaign. You have to you have to reach people. Yeah. People. So, and the fact you weren't expecting it. So it's not like, oh, I'm the, I'm head of door knocking. And, if I interviewed that person. Yeah. So I'm trying also for the listener, the purpose of the podcast, and I don't know how much this helped with that, but I wanted the different groups, geographically, wherever their organizational campaigning was happening, that they could say, hey, I was on this podcast, you should listen to it because we talk about, what we like about Pete. So it was a way to spread the word about Pete, informally through friends. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it was important to have it be everyday people, because that has a lot of power, and that's called relational organizing, is to like, wow, this guy's basically a neighbor or my colleague at work, and wow, if he thinks this, like, oh, and I respect him. So that's what I was really trying to do, help with the relational organizing.
Yeah, it was amazing. So I think your ears must have been ringing though, because I was on a few shows now. I was even on a television show. I think I had mentioned it to you. It's called Bottomless Coffee with Jerome. It's on Channel 6. It also is broadcast on Hulu. If I'm not,
really?
Roku.
Okay.
Roku, sorry.
Yeah, Roku. Okay.
I
like the title.
Yeah.
The Bottomless Coffee.
Yeah.
And I haven't checked it out yet. Sorry.
I got it. The reason he named it that is hilarious. And you'll want to know that eventually down the road, if you're ever on his show, or if he's ever on your podcast in the future, when you do, I think you're amazing. You should probably definitely, when everything clears up in your life, I hope that you do this because you are valuable.
Okay, well, I'll make sure to contact you if I need any kind of a shot in the arm, shall we say?
Oh God, yeah. So to move on the calendar here. So yes. I met you that day. I was mostly the microphone moves. Mm-hmm. I met you that day, and I listened to the podcast, and then there was the Blue. It's something called, AM 950 used to have a Blue State Ball. Now I think I explained it to you, but
right. Oh, I remember hearing it advertised because I listened to Air America 950. Yeah. So I
me
heard
too.
all the airs for the ads for years and years.
Yeah, it used to be Air America. Now it's just AM 950.
Oh, sorry.
So no, Air America was a national thing.
Okay.
It didn't kind of.
Okay.
Liberal radio, for some reason, people just don't gravitate towards it.
They gravitate towards it, but maybe it's not because, well, it's getting into the politics, but, how the Republican, everything is top down, authoritarian. So things tend to, maybe systems need to maybe do better because of that. And, Democrats, we're more free thinking.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And we tend to be more, we think with our hearts. Like we look at other people and go, they're suffering and they need help.
Right.
And I don't think that's going on.
And maybe we're getting our information a lot of different places, and maybe, really conservative people have a hard time finding information that fits their worldview.
Yeah.
And maybe they're more limited to where they can find it.
True, yeah. So to move on the calendar, I went to the Blue State Ball, and then I had met Brett Johnson. Say hi, Brett.
Well, hello there, Phil.
Brett's amazing. And I spoke to him at the Blue State Ball the first time I went, and then I casually met Chad Larson, who is the owner of the station, and had mentioned I had met you and that you had a podcast. And I said, that looks like fun. I watched her, operate the machine, and she showed me. And then I had called you up to ask you, what's the model number? And how do I do this? And blah, 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 blah. So you were like mentoring me through that.
As much as I could.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. I did look at YouTube videos, obviously, to see how to, because there's a lot of intricacies in that machine, as you know. And then the next Blue State Ball, I mentioned it again, and he said, okay, if you want to do this, we'll put it under our umbrella of AM 950 and see how you do. See how it takes off, if it does or not. And almost 2 years later, here I am.
And now you're in the studio.
And I'm in the studio now.
Yes.
I used to do it out of my house.
Well, that's fun too.
With no video cameras, and it was a little cutesy little setup. Remember, I used to put little bottles of water.
But I mean, the technology makes it possible for you to do it at home.
Yeah.
So I could do it.
Yeah. It's very, very, actually for Pride, we did Bloomington Pride and we did Twin Cities Pride. It's such a mobile device.
Right. So you were out there as the roving reporter. So you did the same thing.
Bingo.
Isn't it fun?
Yes, and it's battery operated too. I mean, you could plug it in, but it's battery, and you just have the microphone and you can ask people questions. And so for a couple of episodes I did, I had it on. I used my podcast machine, and if I do Pride again. It will be, I don't know if we'll be able to record it, Brett, right? We probably won't, right? In the street.
Yeah, we'll see. We got a while to figure it out.
A long time. Yeah, it's a long time.
Unfortunately, I think we can do
Yeah,
something.
But Brett's a miracle worker, so I'm sure he can come up with something.
I'm sure he can figure out something.
Yeah. But, and the answers that we got from those people.
See what I mean? Just the average person is so important that they shouldn't feel average. So that's what I think podcasters can really help with.
Yes,
absolutely. Validating people's opinions and feelings.
Giving them a voice.
Right.
Giving them the chance, and I think that's why Matt's show, Matt McNeil, we have on AM9. I'm sure
I've heard.
He's amazing.
Listen to the show.
Yeah, he's the as we used to call it, the GOAT. The greatest of all time. People call into his show and they express themselves. I
love calling shows.
I'm jealous of that. That's a great thing.
Okay, Brett. Someday. He plants the seed. He plants the seed, and then whatever, a year or two later, just like you planted the seed at the Blue State Ball.
Yeah, well, yes.
I'm going to be following your career.
Oh, thank you, honey. And again, I don't know how to thank you because you I'm here because you planted the seed.
Yeah, and I probably talked about how I got into the technology part when I started Twitter travels for Pete. Twitter, because I was meeting all of these other Pete people on Twitter, and I would travel to meet them because I have a flight benefit from my husband's former job.
So you flew to interview these people to different states?
Yes. So that was the whole idea of it, because I thought, how could I use my skills? So sorry if I'm taking this too much on a sidebar, but I think it's important, like what makes a podcaster, And in our Minnesota group for Pete, there were so many talented people, working on the campaign, people with a lot of political experience, political campaign experiences, a lot of people who were project managers in their careers. So they're really good with all the details. And then I was thinking, well, I'm really good with people. I'm good at meeting people, talking to people. I'm not very good at all these other things that other people are good at. But, so how can I use my skills? So I thought, I can travel, I can make contact with people, I can build relationships. The former teacher, that's what you do, is build relationships. Right. And I could travel to meet them. And so I did episodes where I was meeting the core group of the campaign groups. So Omaha, I did Washington, D.C., and Northern Virginia. And, Minnesota, and I can't remember them all, but and then I went to Iowa and interviewed somebody about the caucus. That's before it happened. So most of them were traveling, so I was bringing the gear with me. So
Now,
until COVID, and then so everything was, I was in person with people, and I had traveled to go there, and and then COVID hit, and then everything was remote.
Yeah.
But so anyway, the reason I had the idea like you had, this might be fun, and the reason you think this might be fun because you know intuitively that it matches your skills of being able to talk to people, being interested in people.
You're very approachable. I have to say. You're very,
approachable.
very
Yes,
approachable.
and you know
and you have to be to do this, by the way.
You have to genuinely like people.
Oh, yeah.
See, that's what, if I'm approachable, that hopefully your intuition is showing that I'm going to like you, I'm going to be nice to you.
Yeah,
So, so that's really important. If you want to have a good interview, anyway, anybody could do a podcast, but if you want to have a relationship with the person you're interviewing. So there was a podcast during the campaign about Pete as mayor in South Bend, Indiana, and that was called the Good Guy Pete podcast. It was all about his background, like what he was doing as mayor and his achievements and all the things that he had done as mayor. And that was really important because anybody who was trying to get at Pete because like he was getting too popular, they'd just say a bunch of crap about him, his record as mayor that would be really misrepresented. Not true. So it was really good for us to anybody listening. We'd get actual facts that we could come back at the person we were talking about and say, well, actually, that's not quite true. This is what really happened in South Bend, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So the Good Guy Pete podcast, I got to know the people doing that, and Michael Yoder was the producer. So I met with him because I could travel. I could fly to South Bend, so I went to South Bend a lot. And I met with him, and at the time I thought, I just want to know, if I ever wanted to do a podcast, would you be interested in helping me? But I didn't have the idea for the Pete podcast yet. So like you didn't know exactly what you were going to do yet. You just knew that you wanted to do something. So that's how mine started. So Michael Yoder was the one who helped me with all the equipment. And
so he was the one that mentored you to show you how to use
He produced my show. He produced the Toast to Work too. But he told me like which equipment to get.
Right.
Like I couldn't have done any.
Well, what upset me during the campaign, and I think at the time we were talking about it and upset you, was they were saying, and this aggravates me to this day, he can never be president because he's gay. Doesn't that aggravate you to death? I don't understand why it matters what somebody is. If they're competent and the man, you ask him a question, he's got the answer. He thinks on his feet, and he's so smart. And he, even his military background, he knows all about what was going on in foreign policy. I mean, you could go down the list, but the thing that they were talking about was he was gay.
But I think this was the primary, so it was all about, who was the best candidate to win the primary.
Right.
Right? And so we were all talking to Democrats then. So I think the feeling was they thought in the general election that he couldn't win because of that.
I heard that.
I don't think a lot of the people being asked thought that themselves. Because I was talking to a lot of people in Iowa.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it's more like in a general election, would this be a problem? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so then what? Is a general election is usually won by the independent voters? I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was a worry. I think people were more worried than other years, other cycles, because Trump was so horrific.
Yes.
I mean, the stakes were incredibly high. So that's the feeling we got, like door knocking in Iowa, that they just didn't want to take any risks. It wasn't the year to take any risks. So, of course, we know he dropped before that. But so I think it was more that. But so then the question would be, why would it be a problem for an independent?
Tell me.
So if they're, and maybe because they didn't know him well enough, too. And then, I don't know. But hopefully these are changing, because I think the really extreme positions are the minority of the country that unfortunately they're getting so much coverage because they're outrageous. But, opinions on guns, abortion, LGBTQ+, all those that are so extreme, we have to remind ourselves that's like the minority, and if we get the vote out, we'll win every election.
Yes. But do you remember when President Obama was running, they said the same thing. He's black. He can't win. Mm-hmm. See what I mean? They pull out the identity of the president that's running, or the candidate, I should say, that's running for that office, and they beat that to death. Republicans love that, and that bothers me. It boils my blood.
We have to take some blame for it, though, because like in a primary, we're so worried. We're so worried that candidate's not going to win the general because we're anticipating how the electorate views the general electorate. And so, whereas we maybe need to give more credit, because I don't know if that's actually true. Huh? He could have had more of a problem with the African American vote than nobody caring.
But see, again, my whole shtick about identity politics is that we don't care what a person. You and I, being Democrats.
Right.
We look at the candidate and go, "Wow, he's eloquent. Oh, wow, he's got this experience, that experience.
Right.
He expresses himself well. Blah blah blah. Whatever the case may be, we don't care if he's Asian, if he's Native American, whatever he is. It's not an issue for us, you and I.
Right.
But that other side that is using a lot of demonization. I mean, you have you know who, Voldemort, talking about I'm quoting him. Sort of, I'm paraphrasing. Is probably the better way to say it. That we are vermin, and that we're poisoning the blood of the. He was using very fascistic terms to talk about people who believe in multiculturalism.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, we shouldn't be giving it as much power. But you know how negative, crazy people get a lot of media attention because it's so crazy. So he's getting a lot of media attention for all the crazy things he says. But again, I think the mainstream, like I don't know what the statistics are of people who approve or support same-sex marriage is really high.
Now.
Well, I mean, and so you see what if it's so commonplace, that's what anybody who would feel uncomfortable because they actually didn't know anybody. But now I think a lot of people know and work with. I mean, it's the experience.
I am the most boring gay person you've ever met.
You are really boring. No, but
very
do you know what I mean? If like 80% don't care, then why are we giving 20% so much latitude and attention? And this is a wider issue.
Yes, it is. It is. But look at Florida, though. I mean, these Don't Say Gay bills where these teachers have, if a student says, my two dads are going to come to school, we can't talk about it.
I mean, this is all culture wars. It's only because DeSantis wants to be a mini Trump, right?
Well,
But, here's the thing. Who's going to vote for him if they can vote for the real thing?
Yeah. You don't vote for the mini Trump.
I think it's going to be a Haley. I think it's going to be a Nikki Haley. I said it here first.
I think she's going to be the alternative.
I think, she'll.
Oh, you think she's going to beat him?
I think she'll eventually be the nominee. Wow. And then we need to start thinking about that because she seems normal. She's still conservative, and she still has positions we don't like, but she's at least behaving like a normal person. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, I know it's. I don't want to discount all these horrible things happening, but because they're in Florida, right? So I'm just hoping it's gonna come back to bite them because the pendulum swung way too far.
You think?
And so when you think, even in Florida, like how many people agree about all that, it's still, I would think, in a minority. And so there'll be backlash. And I know with the Dobbs decision for the abortion, that any state that's had any kind of referendum or a vote on it, that the Democrats have, people come out to vote. And you know what they mean? If people are coming out to vote for that one issue, they're also going to be, they're getting the vote out.
I'm glad you brought that up because ladies and gentlemen out there, if you believe in a woman's right to choose and bodily autonomy, Donald Trump is the reason why we don't have it anymore. Why don't they talk about that on the news? You don't hear that. They just say, oh, he said this, he said that. He wants to shut the border down, blah, blah, blah. You know, this baloney.
Well, you know, MSNBC has said it a lot, you know, when it happened.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so I don't know what news source. Yeah, that's been talked a lot, like because of the Supreme Court.
Right.
Yeah.
But he put those people there.
Yeah.
He said, my litmus test to put people on the Supreme Court is to make sure. This is bizarre.
But he doesn't have any convictions of his own or any policy positions of his own. It's like he's a, flag flying in the wind, you know, just like whatever,
Yeah,
whoever's going to give me power. So he's told, you know what, we need that voting block, the voting block of the conservative Christians. Like he needed to get them for sure.
Absolutely.
Because they can't win without the evangelicals,
Yeah.
you know, so.
But it's amazing that they find him an attractive candidate. But anyway, we're pressing on here.
Yes.
Now, I know that you loved doing your podcasts, the two of them, when you did do them. And in the future, again, if everything clears up in your life, and I hope and pray for you, I send you a lot of comfort, love. Oh. And I want you to know, I think you would be amazing to do it again. And I'm just saying I'll be your cheerleader.
Okay.
And I would love to be the first guest on your new podcast. But you have to come up with a great idea.
Oh, I will.
Because Pete's not in the picture anymore, unfortunately. But maybe he will be. You know, I mean, you could. Revamp that podcast.
So I just don't want people to be worried that I'm sick. My parents aren't sick; they're just in their 90s.
Yeah.
So
She's got personal issues.
No, they're not personal. So I'm just home with them a lot, which is what needs to be done.
But that's important.
And it also, it's politically helps me understand from that perspective the social services that we need, and I'm so glad that we live in Minnesota.
Thank you.
Because there's very, very important.
Well, all the listeners out there are praying for you and your family, and we hope that everything turns out well.
Yeah, actually they're not sick. They're old. But everyone in this day and age, you should plan on living into your 90s. If you can survive, if you can not get cancer, because that's going to be the thing. Medical science can keep you alive, which is great. But going back to my podcast, Twitter Travels for Pete, once Pete became transportation secretary, then I did, I think, 10 episodes about that. So.
Oh, really? I got to go back and listen.
So I would, on different highways, and I would interview an expert. But so the way I found the expert was still sort of indirectly through Twitter. So they were Pete supporters, but they happened to also be experts in a certain area of transportation. It's like highways, auto safety, mass transit. So that's really good information that I think is not, could be, it's independent of any political campaign. It's just really important information to know about our infrastructure. And I loved being able to do that.
Wonderful. Now, we have come to the part of the show I like to call the shift. Make sure that you say the F, because otherwise we have problems, okay? Where we shift the questioning away from your wonderful podcast and book.
It's not going to be about me anymore, okay? That's fine.
It's going to be about, you indirectly, your opinion about things that are...
shift.
The shift, the shifta. One of the guests I had on said, Philip, you should say the shifta. So the F comes out, yeah. So we're going to shift the questioning away from, your journey, personal journey, and we're going to talk about current events that are happening, that are very important to all of us as Americans and Minnesotans, obviously. Right now, the southern border of the United States seems to be the top issue on the minds of the GOP in Congress. And as an ESL teacher, once an ESL teacher, you encountered many new immigrants from foreign countries, right? Is that what you did? So do you think closing that border completely and or reforming asylum laws like the GOP would like to do is a good idea? Why or why not?
I worked for 21 years teaching advanced, well, not, most of the time it was advanced ESL to immigrants. They're all immigrants.
Me too. I
And,
did it. That was my first
so
job.
the reason I say advanced level was because they could talk to me and they could write papers for me. So I learned a lot about them. So if you work 21 years with a group of people, you know them pretty well. So I would say to anybody who works in a different industry, like, do you know carpet laying? Like, do you really know it? You know, like, do I really know immigrants? Personal stories for 21 years. So
I'm sure you heard amazing stories.
yeah. So some come from a refugee situation, some were undocumented, but I did not need to know that, but I could tell, and I did not need to report. But I knew their stories. I had one student who had walked all the way from Nicaragua.
Walked all the way from
Yeah.
Nicaragua.
So, with her family. So anyway, a lot of hardship. And so what bothers me is that people don't know what they're talking about. So let's get back to.
So tell us what they should know.
So I have to start with the border's a problem no matter what. So there is no easy solution, but the Republicans are demonizing these humans. So that's what I object to, and unfortunately, I do hear Fox News in the background sometimes, and I know all the buzzwords, and it's like send them back, and they're so not acknowledging.
Round them up, put them on trains, and send them out.
But I do not know what the solution is. I mean, I know some things that could be done. Like worker visas. Like they're finding jobs here, and they're jobs that Americans don't want. So, I mean, we could formalize a lot of what's actually happening indirectly or even illegally, and which would help quite a bit. But the fact that the reason they're coming here is not being highlighted, the GOP is just completely ignoring it and demonizing these people because it fits their narrative of having all of our problems are caused by these people, rather than, perhaps some of your reason you don't have a job is because it went to China, or your job went to ironically to Mexico with NAFTA. Mm-hmm. So it's not because of these people. Like, if you knew that you would walk, I mean, with nothing.
Mm-hmm. Closing their
we,
back.
we have no idea. Like, we have no hardships, really, relatively speaking, at all.
Compared to them, yeah.
So, like, the human side of it, like, it's treated as though, it's just like a fun game for them. They just want to come and cash in. And that's really, they have, like, my one student said that in their Central American country that there's really no rule of law in a lot of these places. And so, like, they have to pay bribes because everywhere they go to, people like, and then there are a lot of gangs because there's no rule of law, really. It's really violent. So their kids get in gangs. It's like we have no idea what life is like there.
No. Yeah, but I hate to interrupt you, but I think they want to change the asylum laws. So, in other words, if you are being persecuted in your native country, or there's a threat to your life, or whatever the case may be, where your life is in danger, they want to change the asylum law so that you have to, stay in your country or go to the first country over your border and not come to the United States.
Well, what does Mexico think about that?
Bingo. They're not going to like that very much.
Well, yeah, I don't know what the solution is because it's a lot of people and it's hard. It's like we don't have the infrastructure.
But they're people,
Right. No, I know.
We have to look at that.
Working out something, I'd rather see, instead of just like, Fox just oversimplifies things and puts it in their bullet points and fits their narrative and their propaganda, instead of like solving, like, let's get together and see how we can work it out, right? It's not even acknowledging that, they left a horrible place.
Yeah.
So, but asylum, to go back to your country, that is illogical.
Yeah. Well, if they
Right?
if they do change the asylum laws, it would be legal for them to send them back, which is
Right.
awful to me. But
Yeah.
moving on again now, according to the New York Times, the embattled chairman of the Republican Party of Florida was censured and stripped of his duties and salary on Sunday, decisions that all but ousted him from the party's top post as he faces criminal investigation into an accusation that he sexually assaulted a woman. And then, of course, he participated in thruples. I love that word, thruples. Threesomes. What?
How embarrassing. He should just.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: people used to resign,
Yeah, but
and
they're
now they
supposed to be
just stay. Now they just stay.
Yeah. They're supposed to be the party of morality, family values. How can Governor Ron DeSantis talk about morality when his own party leader is accused of being a
Yeah,
sexual?
did he ask for him to step down? I think he
Not
did.
that I know of.
Yeah, but he didn't. So
They stripped some of his duties.
okay.
So, but he's there.
But I think this happens a lot, So just because you say you're family or whatever family values.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of.
It's a lot of hypocrisy.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I know. I was reading your mind. Yeah.
I think they seem to. They seem to be the party of hypocrisy.
Oh yeah. Yep. Do you remember the senator? He was tapping his foot in the Minneapolis airport.
Oh yeah.
And try to pick up gay men in the airport.
Right.
He was right before he did that and got caught. Well, I forgot his name.
I can't remember either.
It's escaping me, but Larry Craig. He used to always, criticize gay people. Oh, they're this, and they shouldn't have these rights, and they should this, that, and the other thing. And then it turns around that he is doing the exact same thing. He was
So what is that called? I want to use the right term.
hypocrisy.
Right. But especially in terms of LGBT, right? Somebody who is trying to compensate or
Overcompensate.
deal with their own issues and fears about themselves. And I say, I'm not saying they should have a fear of it, but they do have a fear that they themselves
Yes.
are queer. And so to get over that, they have to.
It's called homosexual panic.
Really? Okay.
My mom was, she had worked in a mental health center when I was a young boy growing up. And the doctors diagnosed that. Homosexual panic is when a person realizes they're different.
Okay.
In a sexual way. In other words, they're not attracted to the opposite sex. They're attracted to the same sex. And they act out on it. So to prove to others that they are not gay, so they'll overcompensate and they'll beat up gay people and they'll do unnamed things.
Okay.
And it's called homosexual panic. So I think a lot of Republican people, politicians, I should say, are experiencing that because they're doing the very same thing and they're getting caught. He said he's supposed to be like this guy here. I don't even know his name. I don't even care. But he is talking about immorality in the Democratic Party, and he's going around assaulting women sexually. Well,
and this is where they're talking about the immorality. That's like, well, where is it? But if they keep repeating the same thing, and their voters are only listening to or watching Fox News and right-wing radio. All they have to do is keep repeating the same thing, and then they start to believe it. Because I don't know what immorality they're talking about. And they talk about family values. All the Democrats I know, we have the same family values. Like, we're probably even more like, eating dinner together. Yeah.
Cleaning my house.
Yeah, eating dinner together and taking our kids to their sports. It's like the same.
Yeah.
I don't see any different. I think it's the abortion issue. I don't get the LGBT. I don't get what the objection is other than I think with the evangelicals, there's something, the Bible. So, but then again, this is the evangelicals are a minority of the total electorate, right? But they need them because they don't have enough votes. So.
Yeah.
So that's why they keep saying the same thing over and over and over again to get them. But here's the wider question for me. Like, we're giving way too much power to this ultra-conservative little minority.
Yeah. But they
I
have so
don't
much
know.
power, though, don't they? For some reason. Even though they're not they don't.
Well, that's because the party's giving them power. The party is like, and okay, I don't know everything. I don't know that much about politics. I just know again, I'm a voter and I have, I care about people. So,
Silly you.
anyway, my observation, like, I don't know, like, okay, so who are the voters, the GOP voters? Like, they have two demographics, I guess. They've got their evangelicals and they've got their super rich people who want all the policies that are going to benefit them. And those are two different groups, right? But they need both.
It's a coalition, yeah.
So, and so let's see the voters who are the super rich and they just want the fiscal policies for them, and they don't care about the social policies.
Right, yeah.
So they don't care that all this crap is out there. Mm-hmm. So because they just want the Republicans to win for their fiscal policies, and the evangelicals want them to win for the social policies.
Yeah.
So I don't know so that's why all
Christian nationalism is a big thing with them too. So yeah, I agree.
But it's not true. I don't know how to fight against that.
Yeah. You're right. It's very hard. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to convince people that Donald Trump is not, Mother Teresa, but they seem to think that. But I digress. Viktor Orban, now he's the right-wing extremist leader of Hungary, who some have named the Donald Trump of Hungary. Imagine that.
Well,
what a great
that
note.
must make Trump really happy.
He's refusing to support the European Union's desire to continue funding the Ukraine war against Russia. Do you think the EU should proceed with expelling Hungary from the EU as Orban continues to vote against supporting Ukraine? Now, Ukraine, if they fall, it's a domino effect, I believe. And what say you?
Yeah, well, he's an authoritarian, right?
That's why Trump loves him. Yeah. That's why Republicans actually love him.
Well, yeah, the authoritarians.
He's got a fan club here in the United States.
So I had a student from Ukraine in my class the day, and so I had to have class with her the day after Putin invaded her home country where her parents and in-laws were still living. Mm-hmm. Talk about awkward, like I didn't know how to act. I didn't know. When you know people from the country, I don't get all this anti-support for Ukraine because I don't think people, they just are tired because it's going on too long. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they just need to remember what happened. This is a country that was invaded. Mm-hmm. They were minding their own business.
Yeah, they're just their
thriving
sovereignty
country. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, so how can you, especially if you have an ability to support, which the EU does. Yeah, so I don't want to go so strong as saying they should expel him, but expel Hungary. I don't know what's involved in doing all that, but yeah, well, that's not okay.
He's putting the kibosh on the aid, and that's very frightening to me because again, if Ukraine does fall and becomes part of Russia, who's to say he won't go to the Balkans next or to Poland and then that would involve the United States because now that's those are NATO countries.
I know.
And then we have to send our blood and treasure to Europe to fight that war. So people that don't support Ukraine, watch out what you're saying because
I don't get that at all.
No, I don't either.
It's like a selfish, I think a lot of that authoritarian rhetoric is very
he liked Kim Jong-un, he liked Putin, he liked
okay, it's pro-Russia basically, so we should just call it as it is. It's a pro-Russia position.
Yeah. Anyway, so the final thing I want to talk about, as you know, I like to discuss LGBTQ. We're definitely going in a different direction here, but I like to discuss LGBTQ issues on the show because no one else is doing it, except for a small number of shows. On AM 950, actually. Yay. We love AM 950 for that reason.
Yes.
We address the issues that are of great importance to our community. There are 75 anti-LGBT bills that have become law just in this year in the United States in 2023. Imagine 75. bills that have become law.
Oh.
75. A few.
Okay.
I'm gonna enumerate a couple of them. There's more.
So it's not just Florida.
No. A few examples of these laws include banning and/or restricting transition-related care for minors, which I think has nothing to do with the government. It should be between the doctor and the mother and the father of that child. Barring trans student athletes from playing in school sports teams that aligned with their gender identity. Strict limits on classroom discussion about anything regarding the LGBT community. In other words, if a kid, like I said before, if he raises his hand, my daddies want to come to school and we're going to do this and that. No, you can't say that. Barring the use of pronouns that don't align with the student's birth sex. Restricting which restrooms trans students can use. Restricting drag performances, regardless of how innocent they are. Even if you just read The Cat in the Hat to a bunch of kids, that's terrible. What else here? Preventing trans people from changing the sex on birth certificates and other documents. Blah, blah, blah. We could go on.
So some of those are obviously clustered.
What are your thoughts about all those
It's ridiculous.
laws?
I just hope it all comes back to bite them.
Yeah.
But I think what we didn't realize maybe as a party is how, I keep saying evangelicals, like the socially conservative part of the country, how upset they were. I don't know what we could have done differently, but I thought we were making progress in the 70s, right?
Yeah.
We never passed the ERA, right? It's like
right.
And every time we're making progress as a society, well, I guess somebody was really pissed off.
Yeah.
And so now it's going back, so perhaps did we recognize this was happening? Because I think, the Republicans capitalized on that. And like I said, again, only part of their electorate is socially conservative.
Yeah. But I think as a gay man myself, I look at it as a way, because I remember it was a definite motivator for people on that side of the aisle to go to the polls. We can't have those gay people getting married.
Well, hopefully it's going to be the opposite now.
Well, yeah, I hope so.
Because it's so...
We'll see,
Okay, the trans issues are... So it's almost like they've kind of given up on the traditional LGBT, because a lot of those are trans, that people feel uncomfortable enough with some of those issues. So they have to have a group that they're marginalizing, I guess.
That's what they do to every group.
Well, here's the thing. What about... They're focusing so much on that. And, what about other issues of that your bread and butter dinner table? What do they call it?
Like health care and things like the child care.
So they have nothing.
No.
They have nothing but something like this that
they create issues that don't need to be created.
But the laws are harmful, right? I mean, it's not it's not just talk.
Well, we have 2 minutes left. I just want to quickly, because it's Christmas season and Hanukkah season and holiday season, so I would like to end on an uplifting note.
Okay.
What are you going to do for the holidays?
What am I going to do for the holidays?
Anything planned?
Oh yes, I've been very busy with elder care, which again I want to stress is the right thing to do.
Of course.
But I still have, so I've got my different Christmases, maybe not on the same day, but I'm finding joy in all the preparations. And I started early because Thanksgiving was early, so that meant we had one extra weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have a baby granddaughter. She's 15 months, so
cute.
Yeah. So I'm just really looking forward to spending time with family, and I'm doing all the joyful things I can out and about. And
Well, the message for Christmas and all the holidays is peace on earth, goodwill to men. That's not being practiced by some people in this country, and I just want to end the show with that message.
Goodwill
Towards men. And so I want to thank you, Sue Ann, for being a guest today on the show for the third time. And again, thank you for being my inspiration.
Your catalyst?
My catalyst.
I want to do that, yeah.
Yeah, you were amazing. Thank you so much.
And I'll do something again.
Hopefully. And to our listeners, thank you for spending time with us today. And please look out for more of the Downright Upright Show in the future. am950.com/events/Philip with 1 L. And of course, thank you for supporting the show, and thank you for your clicks and subs. And we're going to wave and kiss everybody goodbye and happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Love you. Happy holidays.
Happy-
You.